Welcome everybody to the show, wherever you're listening, in high places, low places. This is the Politically Incorrect Podcast, episode 2. How's everybody doing today? Deshaun?
What's up, Evaldo? I just came back from New Hampshire. Loved it. Had a great time.
Yes.
And I'm back and ready to attack.
Amen. Come on.
It's time to talk about some really controversial issues. Say what's up, Matt.
Hey everybody, this is Matt, and so glad to be back for episode 2, and just want to say thank you all for the support, and for those that took the time to listen to episode 1. It was a fantastic launch. We couldn't have been happier with it, and we hope to continue to give you good quality content as we continue to move forward.
Yes, and I am Evaldo Barros, and that was Deshaun Barros and Matt Camara, and we're here again. We have a very good show set up and ready for you guys today. I'm excited. I am excited. We want to kick off the show today with no one other than your California, what is she, a senator? Senator or Congresswoman.
Congresswoman.
Maxine Waters.
Yes, the lovely Maxine Waters.
Boy, is she something.
Yes, she
How'd you
is.
like to be married to that?
I probably wouldn't be married.
No.
So, Maxine Waters, in light of the new immigration policy presented to us by President Trump, had some interesting things to say. In her latest interview with John Berman, host of the New Day show on CNN, on Friday, she gave her take on how she felt about this new policy. Actually, let's go to the video. I think, Matt, you heard it. I don't think Deshaun has heard her response, right? I don't think you've heard it, right, Deshaun?
No, I'm not even familiar with Maxine Waters.
You're not familiar with it? Okay.
No.
So let's go to the video and see what Maxine Waters had to say about Trump's new immigration policy. Let's go.
I want to ask you.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
That's
I did want to
okay.
ask you about the president's Rose Garden event yesterday, where he proposed changes to legal immigration, changing the ratio between those admitted because of family connections here, and as he puts it, a merit-based system. Now, we didn't talk about the Dreamers, and I know Democrats say it's no deal if we're not getting anything on the Dreamers. But Dreamers aside for a second, would you be open to some changes in who is admitted to the country legally?
Well, we need comprehensive immigration reform that takes into consideration those people who are in the country illegally, takes into consideration whether or not there would be employment efforts or where people would not necessarily be given, citizenship status, but there would be some way by which they could supply labor to help with our economy. I think that all of these things should be taken in consideration. Asylum, those people whose lives are threatened, all of these things should be taken into consideration. There should be comprehensive immigration reform, and not immigration reform that is based on exciting and inciting those people who have negative thoughts about others coming across our border, and basically working to use that information to promote himself in a campaign. And I think it is some of that is very racist. It is not keeping with what this country is supposed to be all about. It is not what our Statue of Liberty pretends.
What exactly, just so our viewers know, are you saying is racist there?
Well, this business about you must speak English. We're going to give you points for speaking English. And we don't want poor people. We only want those people who are earning substantial wages already. All of those things are not keeping in step with the way that we treat human beings. And even the fact that, he used to talk about chain migration when you were able to help others in the family come. He's going to limit that. And I think that some of those policies are racist.
There you go. So Maxine Waters said quite a few things there about the new immigration policy, how it incites negative feelings and violence towards those immigrants that are coming here, or the illegal aliens that are coming here, and how that having a merit-based system, meaning that you have to have some good merits behind you in order for us to begin to consider you into coming into our country, is racist. So Maxine Waters feels that Trump's immigration policy is racist. Let me just go real quickly over Trump's new policy proposal. Okay? So first of all, Trump, according to what article was I reading there? It was in I think it was the Daily Caller. Read an article there. Trump said this: "Our proposal is pro-American, pro-immigrant, and pro-worker." The president said during an event in the White House Rose Garden. And he says it's just common sense. And the proposal focuses on two major things: border security and merit-based immigration. Border security meaning a border wall that covers about 33 strategic locations, modernized ports of entry, expediting immigration court proceedings and removal processes, and then a self-sustaining border security trust fund generated from funds collected on border crossing. All right? The president says that he promised that asylum claims will be expedited, stating if you have a proper claim, you will be quickly admitted. If you don't, you will promptly be returned home. And then the other portion of it is the merit-based portion, meaning more visas to younger immigrant workers, have to have valuable skills, have an offer of an employment before they come into the country, have an advanced education, earning higher wages, and they have to be financially sufficient, speak English, and pass a civics exam. And this new visa thing is called Build America Visa. But according to Maxine Waters, all of these things are racist. So I want to know, Deshaun, you're someone that was born here, but yet you have immigrant families because you're Cape Verdean, but you were born here.
Yeah.
So you being here legally and not having the experience of immigrating, whether illegal or legally, but you know families that are probably here, either illegally or legally, if they've immigrated from back home. How do you feel about her saying that this policy is racist? How does that make you? What are your views on that?
I mean, so I'm just hearing about this. Honestly, I haven't been able to look up Maxine Waters, but based on her logic and her merit of choice, this doesn't seem to me at all racist. This seems to me more of something that is securing America's workforce, America's social standing, and making sure that anybody who enters this country is somebody who is able to work and provide for their families. Another way I would view it is certainly a way in which we can regulate and have security of who and what is coming into this country.
And you said something interesting, that it secures America's interest. And you said that organically, not even knowing about all the details of this.
No!
Because Trump said this: random selection, meaning if you just let random people in, is contrary to American values and blocks out many qualified potential immigrants from around the world. And this will bring us in line, meaning this new policy, with other countries and make us globally competitive.
Yeah.
So you're right. It is coming from an America's interest, this new policy point of view, because we have to protect our own interests. So Matt.
Yes.
And I'll go back to you, Deshaun. Matt, and you're someone quite different from Deshaun because you're white, as we can all see. You were born here, but you might have immigrants in your family that immigrated here, right? But your family members that came here are coming actually from a better country than opposed to someone like me and Deshaun. We're coming from a third world, poorer country. But you might have a different perspective because your immigrants are coming from a place where they're not really needy. They come from a good country. Portugal's a decent country. I think it's better financially than the Cape Verde Islands or some of the other countries that these immigrants are coming from. But so how do you view this? Do you agree with Maxine that this might be a little bit racist? I mean...
Well, I don't think it's racist for a couple of reasons. One, it's not excluding a specific type of people.
Yeah.
The other thing is most other modern nations have some sort of qualifications that you have to meet before immigrating to that nation. I remember a few years looking back, and it might be even worse now. I was looking into certain countries, whether it be Australia or Japan. Even Canada has some strict qualifications. Even Mexico itself has some qualifications as well that needs to be met. But some of these countries require a degree, $5,000 in the bank, proof that you can take care of yourself and your family if you immigrate to that nation. So I don't see this being racist at all. I just think that that's her nature is just to kind of call everything racist. As far as my family history, you did point out that, yeah, I'm Portuguese, so my family did come from Portugal. I will note that they came from the Azorian Islands,
Yeah.
which is a lot, especially during the time that they immigrated, was a lot poorer
Okay.
and was not treated the same as mainland Portugal. So they definitely did come here for financial reasons, but they came here legally. In fact, I know my grandfather actually came here first before he was able to actually get his wife over here. So he had to come here, do all the legal paperwork, make sure that he could establish himself financially, and then complete the process of bringing his then wife over
But
here.
would you say, though, compared to some of the illegals who are getting here, that their circumstance, I mean, in light, I mean, the people from the Azores back in your day that you're talking about, I think they're probably a little bit better off or in a different sort of frame of mind, I would say, than.
Well, they're a
Those are
little
coming
bit better off in the sense that they're not dealing with drug cartels and things like that.
Okay.
As far as poverty levels, I would say probably the same. So, maybe a little bit better off, but probably not much more better off. But the point is that they came here legally. And I just don't see that the current, what the Trump administration is trying to do, how that's racist at all, setting up some qualifications. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off that, Matt. You know what I mean? I mean, just like anything else, when you go for a job interview, when you go anywhere, I mean,
Yeah.
there's some qualifications that you need to meet. And I think that we should, as a nation, have qualifications for people who are going to come into this country, especially if they're going to contribute to the society or live in the society we have built here in America. I feel like there has to be some kind of qualifications for that. I don't feel like you should just be able to just march into this country with no kind of background, no kind of check, nothing that helps to benefit the future of America. So I feel like if you're coming into this country solely to take and to not give into the society in which America's built, why in this case would we allow something like that or people like that to come into this country to ruin what America's built? No, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to better the country. If you're in America and you've contributed to society with taxes, with your family values, with your own family here that lives here, you're looking out for the security and the financial security of your own household by having these qualifications for immigrants that are coming into the country.
And what Maxine Waters is trying to do is she's trying to make it seem like I had mentioned earlier that some of these countries, they require like a real valuable skill in order for you to be considered to go there.
Yeah.
She's trying to make it seem like this proposal is going to make it so that anybody who is poor or doesn't have a college degree won't have the opportunity to come here.
Yeah.
When in fact, all it's saying is that you based on the merit system, you have a better chance if you have some sort of skill. We have a large, I'd say, a vacancy of hard labor jobs that require a skill that a lot of these people are able to fulfill. They don't need a college degree to learn to be a plumber or carpenter or do other forms of hard labor. They're willing to do that work, and that would count towards being a skill that they're able to do. They're really more concerned about people coming in here with terrible backgrounds. But Maxine Waters is really trying to make it seem like we just don't want poor people to come in this nation. And that's not true, because our nation was built on immigrants. It was built on the backs of hard labor from all sorts, whether it be the Irish, the Chinese, the blacks, the whites, whatever. So she's trying to make it seem like this new proposal is going to eliminate. If you're poor and you don't have a high value skill, like you're not a doctor, so you're not going to get in this nation. She's just fear-mongering at this point.
Well, I think what the Trump administration is doing, they're trying to less burden the country with the burden of immigrants that come here and they can't provide or self-sustain for themselves.
Right.
That puts a taxing and a burden in our system. And I will say this, guys, it is racist if you have a disenfranchised mentality, if you have a victimized mentality, if you have, entitlement mentality, right? It is racist because when you have that kind of mentality, none of those standards, which make sense to the average person, the common sense person, none of those standards make sense to you if you're in that situation. You will just say it is racist. And that's what the Democrats and Maxine Waters are trying to pull. They're trying to pull that kind of card on people to make them all wild up and emotional and not be able to reasonably think about this. And they want to pull on that emotion. Listen, I get a lot of people, like I'm Cape Verdean. A lot of us came here through chain migration for work. A lot of you talk to a lot of these different cultures. They'll come here and they'll stay with illegal visas, and they're trying to get people to marry them. So I've seen a lot of that. So I understand where they're coming from. There is no standard. They just want to come here and find the loopholes that are in the system and use it. And if a politician is out there saying what Maxine Waters is saying, that's okay to them. Because when you're desperate and you just want whatever it is that you want, nothing that's good and makes sense you will hear. You're only going to hear people like Maxine Waters.
Of course, and I mean, think about it like this. I mean, people are more self-preserving than ever. So I mean,
exactly.
If somebody wants to get into this country and wants to go through any loopholes, they're going to find it and just use it and maximize that to their own benefit.
And the Trump administration is just identifying those loopholes and kind of securing it. Evaldo, you brought up a good point about taxing the nation. I want you guys to think about this. In the span of 2 months, okay, not counting legal immigration, we allowed in 168,000 illegals in the span of 2 months. Now, I want to put that into perspective because the population of the city of Fall River is about 80,000. So in the span of 2 months, we allowed basically 2 Fall Rivers to enter this nation. That major influx of people in such a short period of time, we're not talking about 100 people. We're talking about 168,000 people just pouring into the nation. And then all of a sudden schools have to deal with that. All of a sudden hospitals have to deal with that.
Yep.
And I know that it's easy for us because we're all the way up here in Mass and we get this mentality, it doesn't affect us, so why do I care? But you kind of have to be compassionate to the people who are living in those border states, who are dealing with that massive influx.
Yeah.
Think about that. The entire city of Fall River times 2 just walked across the border and is now living in the United States.
And I mean, it's to say to that is just, it's amazing how much the Trump administration gets scrutinized. And I mean, in many cases, for people who are just looking for loopholes in the system, of course, they're not going to like that the country is actually tightening up its immigration laws. But for anybody in America who's listening and really wants to understand the fact that this country actually needs a safe and secure border immigration system that allows for good people to enter this country, not just illegal aliens who are coming here to cause problems, because some of them do come here to cause problems. As much as people love to shed light that, everybody that comes into this country is great and they're going to help America. That's not true. A lot of the people that come to this country in many cases, and some of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but some of the people who come to this country are not going to do us any good. Some people are going to come and just use us, just use the American system, abuse it. Some people are not even going to contribute to society.
If you're a liberal, you think that this country is evil already, and we owe it to the world to let people in.
I'll give you.
Oh man!
I'll give you an example. Deshaun brought up a good point with people obviously using the system. So if people know that they can come into this country illegally, they're going to do it. So that's why we're seeing such an uptick. And surgery, because they want to get in before those loopholes are closed. I'll give you an example of what's going on in the UK. The UK has this policy where they have universal healthcare, and they have this policy where if something happens to you while in the UK, they have to cover it. So what was happening, because the United Kingdom has some pretty loose relations with India, people from India were so-called vacationing in the UK, and while they're vacationing, they would go to the hospital and they would get their procedures done. So if somebody needed to get heart surgery done, they would go to the UK, get the procedure done, and not have to pay anything, and then go back to their home country. those were ways that they were abusing it. I'm not saying that that's what's happening now, but we obviously know that there's instances where illegals are getting food stamps. They are getting resources. They are getting stuff that they need.
You're nicer than me because I think that's exactly what they're doing.
Right.
You're nicer than me.
Oh,
way
man.
nicer than me.
Well, I mean,
I know the game, man.
Well, I try to look, the good side of people. I try to think that there are some people here that actually want to make a good living and do living. But unfortunately, I do know people personally that will work under the table.
Yep.
And they will obviously not report, not pay taxes, and then also on top of that receive EBT cards and other forms of welfare. Their rent getting paid. It's disheartening for somebody like me. I know I'm white, so I have all this white privilege.
Yep.
But it's disheartening to me that I have to work a full-time job to pay for my family, and then on top of that get a second job, work part-time. Because I can't qualify for any assistance. Now, I don't make buku bucks. I really don't make a lot of money. But it's disheartening to go to a place like Market Basket and see people with massive carts filled to the brim with all this food, and then they whip out the EBT card, and I'm over here, I can barely afford milk and bread. I guess that's my white privilege.
Don't you know you owe it to the world because of your white privilege, Matt?
I know.
you owe it to the world, man. You owe it to the world.
It seems to be working out.
To not be able to pay
check
for
out
milk
this
and
stat,
bread.
guys. Check out this stat. So Trump said that the proportion, check out this statistic right here that I just saw. Trump said that the proportion of visas that go to highly skilled immigrants will jump from 12% to 57%, meaning that we were having 12% of only highly skilled immigrants coming in. It's going to go from 12 to 57. That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
So what were we letting in before?
Everybody.
We were letting everybody.
I mean,
man.
the Obama administration was flying people in.
So what are some of those countries that actually have really good, strict immigration policies?
Australia, Japan, Canada, and even Mexico has a pretty strict immigration plan. That's why the people pretty much bypass Mexico and go right to the U.S.
So I want Maxine Waters to be consistent and use her same logic and call those countries racist as well. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You can call America racist, but keep that same logic and intensity to other countries.
I see where you're going with
Don't
that.
just put us on blast. But you tell those countries they're racist too, because they have better policies than we do.
Well, if you remember, not too long ago, it was towards the end of Obama's presidency, Australia didn't even want to take in refugees and made a deal with the United States to take over 5,000 refugees. But nobody blasts them.
Because the attack's on America, guys. There's an attack on the American system, the American values. And it's amazing how the Trump administration is tightening up on some of these immigration laws, and the Democratic Party is still attacking the very country that we want to protect and we want to preserve.
Yeah, and what really ticks me off is when people say, "Oh, you have to have compassion." I understand that, but compassion has to be on two sides of the aisle here. Yes, have compassion. Let's listen to these people who are actually seeking asylum. Let's weed out the bad guys. But we have to have compassion for the people who are coming in here legally, who are spending lots of money and time waiting on a list to get here legally. And then when they come here, they don't get the assistance that other people may get. So we have to have compassion on them. Then we have to have compassion on the American people who are paying for all these things. It's coming from somewhere. So as a compassionate Christian, we have to be compassionate on all sides. I get that.
Yeah. And I believe, I want to I'm sorry to cut you off, man, but I want to add to that because many people think that compassion always has to be this place in which we hold people or we help people. In many cases, compassion is telling somebody, no, you can't enter the country because you are not qualified to. I would argue that that's compassion. Because when you come here and you try to take from the American people in many cases, and then you have people who will abuse the system and abuse things, and then you have people come here illegally, like you said before, and waiting on a list to get here, and yet can't get the assistance they need, can't get their visas, can't get through, and yet the people who are abusing the systems or getting through the loopholes are benefiting greatly.
Right. And it's not compassion, Maxine Waters, and those of you who think this way, to exploit the weaknesses of those that are trying to cross over here because they see loopholes and they put themselves through dangerous situations because they know that they have a chance of staying here. It's not compassionate to let them go through that and put themselves in danger and their children with all the cartelling, the sex trafficking, all that stuff that goes on.
Yep.
That's not compassion.
No.
They're exploiting that. But I'll end with this, Matt. I like what you said. Heaven also has a strict immigration policy.
It does, yeah.
Oh, heaven
It
sure
does.
does.
Yeah.
If you guys think that Jesus Christ was just this Leonardo da Vinci painting of some effeminate, really beta male looking dude and just loves everybody and lets everybody in and everything's all just fun and dandy, no. He's got a very strict immigration policy in heaven. You better believe it. I like when you said that, Matt. That was a good thing that you told somebody one time.
Yep.
Oh,
In
yeah.
an exchange on Facebook, I believe.
You know, people may not like it, but heaven itself has walls. It has a strict
Yeah.
immigration policy. If you don't obey the gospel of Jesus Christ, you're not going
Right.
to make it to heaven. That's just the way it is.
Hey, I got a wall around my my yard. Am I racist?
Yeah, according to Democrats, you're very
According
racist.
to Democrats, you are a racist, sir. But you know what?
No, according to Democrats, I'm an Oreo. I'm not racist. I can't be
You're Uncle
racist.
Tom,
I'm
right?
an Uncle Tom.
You know,
I'm a
Tom.
victim of white supremacy thinking.
Yes, yeah.
All right, I'm all done, man. What do you got for us, Station?
So I mean, just to piggyback off what you said, that there are boundaries, and the United States and its immigration laws and things of that nature has to have boundaries. And just like boundaries for our country, we need to have boundaries when it comes to the life of human beings. And a few days ago, I had posted something about Georgia because Georgia had passed a heartbeat bill that was supposed to be signed on Tuesday by Governor Brian Kemp. And his campaign is to promise to sign the heartbeat bill. And really what this is a letter. This heartbeat bill is all about prohibiting abortions in the state of Georgia as a heartbeat is detected as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. So the law would give exceptions in the case of rape, incest, or if the life of the mother is in danger. But my argument, as far as how I feel like all life is sacred, regardless of the mode of conception. But if the mother is in danger of dying and conceiving this baby, my opinion is that yes, in many cases, I would say medically, if it's just not possible for this baby to be born, and it would be medical problems, I could probably give with that, you know what I mean, in many cases. But as far as I'm concerned, I think abortion should not be tolerated. I feel like the mother, regardless of the circumstances of conception, you're murdering a child. And in many cases, I had posted something on Facebook the other day about why I stand with Georgia. And really, it's pretty much simple, is that the boundaries for this kind of argument, as far as abortion is concerned, the left will always love to bring up the idea that since I don't have a uterus, since I'm not a lady, I can't speak on the
Wait,
topic.
you don't have a uterus?
Yeah, I don't have a uterus, so I can't talk about this kind of issue, or I don't have say in the matter. And in many cases, conception cannot occur without copulation. And really what I mean, you can't form a baby. The baby cannot be made without having sex. If nobody knows what that is, copulation, if you didn't know what that meant. And really, it disgusts me to see that the left has taken a turn as to say as if a woman does not need a man to conceive a baby. And really, of course, a woman needs a man to conceive a baby. Regardless if you're getting it from a sperm bank, I've heard so many crazy arguments about how a male doesn't need to be present, but really a male is present regardless of the situation. So for the left to just kind of butt us out of the conversation by saying it's our bodies, just really doesn't make sense. I mean, what are you guys' opinion on this heartbeat bill in Georgia? I mean, and then Alabama passes also another bill that outlaws abortion. So we have two different bills here.
Right.
I mean, for me, as far as the mother's in danger, I haven't really formed a really solid opinion, but for everything else, rape, incest, in any cases, I feel as if the baby is still sacred, that life is still sacred, and that baby should still be born. That's still another person, regardless of the circumstance of conception.
Yeah.
But what's your point of view?
You know what? I don't know about this bill too much, but I will tell you this. I think Melissa Milano, whether she realizes it or not, is on the right track. She just started something called Sex Strike, telling all the women to go on a sex strike if you're anybody that's opposed to if you're not pro-abortion. Now, you're right, Melissa Milano. The best way to prevent abortion is to stop having sex out of wedlock. So you may not realize it, but you're on the right track. You're telling us what we've been telling you all this time. Abstinence is the key all right, until you're married and you can provide for a family and for a baby. So Melissa Milano, kudos to you, whether you know it or not. Keep going on that set strike, because we've been telling you this for a long time. Abstinence, girl. I actually liked her growing up watching Who's the Boss. But yeah, that's what I think about it.
Matt, what's your thoughts on this? Because I was outraged. I posted a status. I think it was I want to say it was a couple days ago. And I just got a lot of feedback from a lot of liberals. And one of the things I really liked about the post was that there was a lot of commenting, but I just feel like there wasn't a lot of dialogue. And I feel as if when you stand for when you're pro-life or you're conservative in any way, and you express that value or that thing inside of you that says this is wrong, people automatically take it as if you're being rude or you're offending people. And really, we need to have these conversations, these tough conversations, because honestly, anybody, this is America, you should be able to speak about your own values and what you believe in.
Right. As far as abortion, obviously, being a Christian, I have to look at it in that sense of like, right. So for me, all forms of life is worth saving. Whether it be a gray area for things like rape and incest and all that stuff, you know what? I think that's where we have to continue to have dialogue and conversation. As a Christian, as long as the baby's healthy, you know, in my opinion, like what you had mentioned, it should be preserved. It should be saved. And I don't think we should be killing babies just for the sake of killing babies. You know, we all make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences. You know, when people bring up abortion and defending it, a lot of times they bring up that rape and incest and things like that. But that accounts for less than 5% of all abortions done in the United States. You know, in the United States alone, we've had over 60 million babies aborted. So less than 5% of that have been attributed to rape and incest and, you know, being a health issue for the woman. So if we take away that logic that the liberals are pushing for this, what about the 95% where it doesn't attribute to that? It's just people being selfish, just wanting to kill a baby, not the responsibility, not wanting to suffer the consequences of having those relations outside of wedlock.
Yeah.
The other thing that bothers me is when people will mention that, hey, you don't have a uterus like you had mentioned, so you have no say. But I'll share a brief story with you and why I'm so passionate about pro-life. It's part of my testimony, and you know what I say is that, yeah, I may not be in the position in which I'm carrying the baby or making the baby at that point, but as a partner, I don't go through that birth process, but I go through the abortion process. Okay, and in my experience, you have to understand that before this. I used to be an extreme liberal. My point of view is you do whatever you want to do, as long as it don't affect me. I could care less what you're going to do. But I went through the abortion process, and let me tell you, what was supposed to be a joyous occasion or something that we thought would be less stressful, because we didn't want to deal with that mistake that we made. We didn't want to deal with the consequences of having a baby at such a young age. We went through with this process, and let me tell you, what we thought was going to be the right thing turned into a nightmare for us, because all it did was create regret. All it did is create depression. All it did was cause division in our relationship and cause nothing but problems. You see, I lost the baby that day, but I also lost my partner in the sense that she was never really the same. So a lot of people will like to say, oh, well, you're a Christian. You go to this church that is not for abortion, and they teach against it. But you know what? My opinions were formed well before that. When I began to see what it does to people, that abortion process, and that it destroys not only the baby, but the person having the abortion.
Oh, man.
Yes, there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be people that will go on YouTube for the clicks and say, I just had an abortion and it was the most amazing thing that I ever done. But you know what? I can guarantee you that they're lying to you. If they have any sort of conscience, it's going to come up here and there that, why did I do this? What if I just had the baby? Maybe I would have been better off. And I can guarantee you that they deal with that depression, because that's what me and my partner went through. And it was only through the grace of God that we were able to not only have our relationship restored, but that we can begin to forgive ourselves and each other for what we had done. So that's the reason why I fight for life, because I've been through that abortion process. And at one point I thought it was just, it's just a ball of mass. Who cares? Just get rid of it and all our problems will be solved. But it's not. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah,
And actually, the woman that began with the whole abortion case, she's no longer a pro-abortion.
Yeah,
She's pro-life, but they don't tell you that.
Correct.
And you know what? I had a family member the same as what Matt just said. I had a family member go through this abortion process, and let me tell you something, man. It really changed her forever, man. And it was something that was so much deeper than just getting rid of something. And I don't understand in many cases how pro-choicers always say we should give the woman the choice to have an abortion. And in my stance, that's a cop-out, man. That's such a cop-out because
I understand why from a politician's standpoint.
Honestly, it's almost as if you have to give it this idea that abortion is the answer to all unwanted pregnancies, and really that's not it. In many cases, the biggest argument is this is a woman's body, this is a woman's right, and a woman should have the final say.
I understand why from this point of view, and I'll say this, Matt. This is when you talked about Hitler when they were killing babies or whatever during the Holocaust days, and they had a medical justification for it, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
So I'm not saying the politicians are intentionally doing this, but when you start to change definitions about what is the meaning of life, and then you start to incorporate laws that allow you to kill babies under the guise of women's health, you go down a road at some point that could end up like what Hitler was doing, which is just killing babies depending on how they felt they would fit into society.
Yep.
So they would have a medical justification for just wiping out whoever they wanted to wipe out. That's the end result of all this. I want people to think about that.
So if you're not familiar with what Valdo's talking about, basically what happened in Nazi Germany at the time, before that they were gassing Jews, their first targets, and a lot of this isn't in the history books, you have to dig a little bit deeper, they were actually targeting anybody with some sort of medical defect, Down syndrome, any sort of mental illness.
Yep.
And what they would do is if a person had a baby and the doctor deemed that there was maybe something wrong, it could be something as a missing finger or something like that. What they would do is they would take, at that time, they would take the baby away and do what they needed to do, and they would kill the babies. The nurses would kill the babies, and then go back to the mother and say, oh, such and so baby caught this disease and didn't make it. And then they would do this with the mentally ill. They would instead of caring for the mentally ill or disabled, they would take them, and they were actually the first people getting gas chambered. If they deemed that you had some sort of learning disability or you were a little bit older, they would have you come into the doctor's office. A group of 3 people would determine whether you could be sterile or not. And if these 3 people determined that maybe you had a low IQ, they would actually sterilize that patient so that they couldn't have babies anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I want to add to that. One of the biggest arguments that I see from the left, from the liberal point, is if somebody gets raped, all right, and there's incest and things like that.
Yeah,
I actually have a clip. I have a clip that I had seen on social media of a lady giving her testimony of her child, and just so I don't have to play the whole thing, I'll probably play a little bit of it. But she was actually raped, and this woman went through this horrible sexual assault. We don't condone rape here. Rape is not a great. We don't think it's good. We think any rapist should be in jail and should be going through, I don't know how long. I'm not a lawmaker, but I don't believe rape is right. I believe rape is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, it is.
And this woman gives a powerful testimony about her son that she still bore regardless of the conception. Let's just take a listen really quick.
My name is Jennifer Christie Brierly. 4 years ago, I was brutally attacked in a hotel room, beaten, tortured, and raped, my body thrown in a stairwell. I'm not here tonight to represent crime victims. I'm here tonight to represent the 32,000 women a year who become pregnant after rape, and there's 75% of us who give our children life. I'm part of a global organization called Save the One. Save the One is mothers from rape, children, adult children who are conceived in rape. And it's this people group who I'm talking about, the conceived in rape, who are targeted, it seems, for eradication. This doesn't make sense to me because the Supreme Court has already decided that for a rapist to be punished with death is considered cruel and unusual punishment. And yet somehow we are okay with killing the children who were not even in existence at the time the crime was committed. I'm here tonight to bear witness to the lies that I heard and the lies that I was told, that if you just abort, everything will be okay and you'll forget. If you just abort, then you can move on. There's no forgetting. No woman is ever going to forget what happened to her. I've been told so many times that if you just had an abortion, you won't always have this reminder hanging over your head, this reminder. Is my son a reminder? He absolutely is. My son is a reminder every day that as women, we can rise above our circumstances. My son is a reminder that love is always stronger than hate, and that who we are as human beings is not determined by how we were conceived. A woman at her most broken needs hope and help and love and people rallying around her. She does not need violence on top of violence, tragedy on top of tragedy. I'm here tonight, one woman, but I speak for most of us when I say, stop calling my son a rapist child. Stop calling him evil seed and child of the devil. He is my son, and he has a right to be here. Do not use me and my rape and my story and the story of all of us mothers from rape who love our children as a banner to hide behind and excuse the genocide of the innocent. We love our children. The first time I saw my son's heartbeat was on an ultrasound. It's the same heartbeat that beats in his 3-year-old body today. He is an exceptional child, but he is not an exception. I beg you to think of this. The heart that beats in my son, the heart that beat in him at 4 weeks is the heart that beats in him at 3, is the heart that will beat in him at 30. It loves and it hurts and it feels just like mine and just like yours.
If you want to go and find it, it's on liveaction.org. For anybody who has an opinion and wants to know where that came from, it's from liveaction.org.
And we can put a link in the description too.
We'll put a link in the description for you to find that. But really my point being is that regardless of the circumstance, that's a human life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if we're willing to kill, it's amazing how people can treat their pets. Like take them to veterinary, spend so much money on their pets. But when it comes to an aborting baby, it's real quick, real easy to do that. Yeah. You know, it's amazing how people will treat their dogs or their animals so much higher than human life these days. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely appalling to me to use rape and all these different things that really doesn't even occur that much. And it's crazy how people try to. She said 32,000 women that are raped each year. She said 75% of them are mothers of rape. Of rape conceived children.
You know what? I'm actually surprised that it's that high, and I think that's a good thing. I think the majority of women who are raped, they have that conscience of the baby. Now, obviously, as a Christian, my belief is that we're going to protect all life. But if we look at it in the eyes of a woman, it is tough to kind of think of, you know, if that did happen to me, how would I feel? Would I be bitter and angry? It's easy for me as somebody who has the Holy Ghost to know that I have a relationship with God, to know that if something bad happens to me, I have somewhere to go. And I'm not making an excuse for those people who get an abortion. But I'll let you know that abortion just it's not the only option that you have. I know yes. you may be bitter and you may be angry and it may remind you of a terrible time. But sometimes when we allow ourselves to go through that trial, we realize that we come out a better and a stronger person. And what we think is going to be so terrible can actually become a very joyous thing in our life. And that's what having a relationship with God is about. And I don't want to turn this into a ministry thing, but I'm just just throwing in my 2 cents here.
And really, really, with this, I wanna really let people know and hit the nail on the head that abortion is not the only option. And that's really, adoption is an option, like I said on my status before. Adoption is an option, okay? If you do not want that child and you feel like that child, regardless of where you are in your stage of conception and things of that nature, that adoption is an option for these children.
I threw it out there, and for some reason it caused somebody to get very angry. But I just threw out the comment, hey, what if because there was a woman on there named Emily who was talking about how foster care is very bad and it's underfunded. And I just simply said, what if government funded adoptions instead of abortions? Maybe it would be better. Maybe
that's a good point.
You know,
that's a great point.
That's a real good point.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it triggered somebody, and they were very upset with that comment. I didn't mention anything about Trump or pointing fingers, but all of a sudden, it became this thing about Trump. And here's the thing about Trump. Okay, yes, Trump is a pro-life president, with the exception. Okay, he tweeted this out actually yesterday. He said, "Yes, I am pro-life. However, I do believe that the woman does have the option to have an abortion if they are raped, the baby is conceived through incest, or it affects the health of the mother in which the mother wouldn't make it." That is his own words. So I don't understand where people are getting which I don't agree with. But for some reason, this person said, you just agree with everything that president says. And you know what? I don't even agree with that, because as a Christian, I want all life, both the mother and the child, to be saved if possible. But the president has a different view, and you can't blame him for that.
Yeah.
I think as far as looking it through the lens of what's best for the United States, that's probably the best position that he can have, I guess you would say. He's not solely on one corner. He's at least given an option to the liberals there.
Yeah. I
You know,
mean,
one of my problems with it too comes from a money standpoint. I mean, we fund that. Our tax money funds abortions. Now, I just started this. If someone like Trump were to ever to get something like that in place, where only certain exceptions, you know what? You do have a right to do whatever you want to do with your body, but I don't want to pay for it.
Correct.
I don't want to pay for you to get an abortion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I that's one of my, other than it just being wrong, flat out wrong, that's my other consensus too. Mm-hmm. And it goes in line with all these other liberal agendas. They want everybody to pay for their operations, everything they want people to pay for. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, I don't think it should be tax paid. I don't think my stance is literally just, I just don't believe in that. You know what I mean? I don't believe that we should be having abortions, because that says something about us as human beings, that we're so quick to kill a baby. And what's amazing is that the left argues the fact that rape and incest is the very first thing that comes out of their mouth when it comes to arguing the fact of an abortion. But abortion only, the only time somebody's raped, as far as the amount of abortions that occur through rape, is less than 5% of the amount of babies that are aborted.
Right.
More babies are aborted out of inconvenience, out of young people getting pregnant, out of wedlock, things of that nature. Why don't we talk about those abortions instead of just rape? Because that's the very first thing they jump to.
It's funny. I'm going to tie this back to immigration and compassion, right? So the left will say, it's not compassionate. We got so much money, it's not compassionate that we don't let all these illegals in. Okay? Yet the left, those same people will say, you know what? It's a good thing to kill these babies because they're going to be a drain on society. Because the majority of these people that are having these abortions are people out of wedlock who can't support these babies, right? So isn't it funny how we've got all this money to support illegals and poor people coming from other countries, but all of a sudden, killing babies to save money is all of a sudden a positive.
They want to kill them before they get here.
Right.
That's so bad. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's incredible to me. So
if I was the president, here's my proposal, and maybe these guys will agree with me. This is what I would do. Okay, if I was the sole leader of this nation, what I would do is I would make abortions illegal. And here's what I would do. I would give the woman an option. Do you want to keep the baby or not? If they choose not to keep the baby, what I would do is I would propose military schooling for all orphanages, for all orphans, people who don't want their babies. They're going to go through military schooling. So they'll be raised in a military type environment. And then at the age of 18 is what would happen. They would be given an offer. Either they join the military, whatever branch that they want, so they've got all their schooling, or they can go to college, all paid for, and they'll have a choice. They don't even have to join the military at that point, but at that point, they're on their own. So they can get their college degree or certificates, whatever it is that they want, and then go right into the civilian sector. That would be my solution to that problem.
I mean,
I don't know. That might work. I mean, it's definitely a good thing for the lives of those babies.
oh yeah, yeah.
But I know what the end game is for these politicians. It's
Oh,
more
yeah.
power. And when you change definitions of things, like I said, and you do these horrible things that are anti-God, it just gives you more power because when you feed into people's victimization or disenfranchisement kind of thing, that's
Oh yeah.
that's when people lean on government the most, and
Oh,
that's what they
man.
want. They're not going to find a common sense solution for this because it doesn't benefit their political career. That's just how I see
So
it.
even if I want to just take a few minutes to even just go back through history really fast. It's like, yes, women have always been, I would say there's always been a level of abortion all throughout history. But abortion hasn't been so prevalent back then because if you were to have an abortion, say within the years of the 18th or 19th century, the medical technology that we have today, the medical technology from then doesn't even rival what we have today in order to perform an abortion. In many cases, as I look back through history, is that women would actually die doing an abortion. That some doctors would actually end up, because what happens when you perform an abortion, you either try to drown the baby in acid, you try to take the limbs away from the baby. You got to make sure you have every limb, though. A lot of women would die during these procedures. And a lot of women would die during childbirthing. So when people say, oh, abortions will always happen, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, if it were illegal, you'll have to do it under the table, but then you're risking your life.
Right.
So, I mean, this argument to me is just foolish, man. That's how I look at it.
All right, I just want to plug this in right here. Go check out, for abortions, go check out this movie called Gosnell, The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer, starring Dean Cain. And this was a push that they did with this movie to come against abortion. Now, the left won't want you to see this movie because you'll be able to see the horrific facts that are behind abortion. And this is about a doctor that was performing tons of abortions.
Yep.
And it gives you a lot of insight of the reality of what's going on with these abortion clinics.
If I had to guess, it's probably based on the father of abortions who actually,
Yep.
when ultrasound came out and he actually realized what was happening.
Right.
Because he thought that you were just killing something that just didn't have a conscience.
Yep.
But when he went and performed an abortion through ultrasound, he actually recognized that there was fear in that baby. And ever since then, he's been anti-abortion. This is the father of abortion.
Amen.
And now he's anti-abortion, but they won't tell you that.
Yeah, let's plug that movie one more time, Evo. What was that movie?
Gosnell, Gosnell.
Where can you find this?
Starring Dean Cain. I'm not sure, but you can buy it online. I'm pretty sure there's if they haven't banned it, maybe on Redbox or something. But Gosnell, starring Dean Cain, and the trial of America's biggest serial killer. All right, guys, let's wrap up our day. I got a fun story for the day. It is yours truly, the Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger was
Arnold
at an
Schwartz. Arnold
event. He
Schwartz.
was at an event in South Africa taking pictures.
What was
with
he down there for?
He was taking pictures, selfies with fans, and they show you haven't seen this, so let me show you real quick what happened to him. He gets drop kicked and barely moves. He's like 70.
Oh my goodness.
So in that video there, it actually looks a lot worse. But I saw
my goodness, dude.
the same video on a different angle, and like you said, Valdi, it was almost like he didn't move at all. Getting drop kicked at full speed. It just goes to show you how strong that guy is at 70 years old.
Man, that guy's strong, dude. That guy came running and just fell right on his face, man.
I heard about that this morning, and it was so interesting. I was like, what? I couldn't believe
There
it.
is
Hey,
just
man.
crazy people out there.
Someone
man.
just rolled up behind him and just drop kicked him. But the guy that kicked him fell back. If you noticed, he fell way back, and Schwarzenegger barely moved.
I think he probably got more hurt. Plus, he probably got a beating afterwards.
Oh, he definitely got a beating.
Who hates Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger growing up and watching all those Terminator movies.
Yeah, I
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
Jeez. God.
Hey, well, this was another installment of the Politically Incorrect podcast with Evaldo, Matt Camara, and Dave Sean Barrows. I just want to say all life is sacred, man. All human life is sacred. And let's stop killing our babies, right?
And Alyssa Milano, good job with that sex strike. Just tweak it a little bit and you'll get on the right track.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to our channel if you liked what we discussed this morning. Also, we're excited. We have a special guest coming next week to have another great discussion.
Yes, we are.
So please tune in.
We're happy to have him.
For our next show for episode 3.
All right.
All right, guys.